Nostalgic.
Movie review.
From nerdy.
Married man.
Hello, everybody.
Good day to you all.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed our last episode. My name is Ivan,
Yep.
or Ivan's Childhood, whichever title you can get from wherever you get the movie from.
And today we are looking at Mr. Holland's Opus.
Yes.
It's a 1995 film, rated PG, and it is 2 hours and 23 minutes.
Yes. Rotten Tomatoes score, critic gave it a 75%, audience an 84%. And
Right. The synopsis of this film is a frustrated composer finds fulfillment as a high school teacher. That's it.
yeah, pretty simple synopsis. I mean, that's pretty much the entire story. There's not a ton else to the story.
But it is a powerful story.
Yes. Casting for this movie. Richard Dreyfuss stars the lead, with his wife being Glenn Headley. And then we have Jay Thomas, Olympia Dukakis, William H. Macy, which a lot of you might know from a lot of different things, Alicia Witt, Terrence Howard, Damian Whitaker, which is actually Forrest Whitaker's brother. And then one other one I want to make sure everyone knows in this was Jean Louisa Kelly, which most of you might recognize from the show Yes, Dear.
Yes, dear.
Yes, I think she played. She was one of the wives. I can't remember who's in the show, but it's a really good show. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't even recognize her. She's so young in this.
But no, this movie, it was very impactful. I mean, I guess the whole music teacher aspect of it and the music, I guess, scenario is just a huge part of like my past, I guess, like
Yeah.
high school. Very involved with music, so I really enjoyed this film. And with that being the center of it, the music is just phenomenal throughout.
Yeah, I mean, because you were in bands all throughout high school and everything, and you did saxophone.
Yep.
And I mean, my wife played oboe and piano, and your guys' dad also plays piano, and Mike's very instrumental as well. And then David's wife actually is a music teacher herself.
I'm actually really mad I hadn't seen this movie yet because with how musical my life has been, I just feel like it.
And with this being Dana's pick, I actually thought that this was a movie that she had seen a lot, being that she picked a music teacher movie, but she had never seen this movie either. So it was a really fun pick where both of our wives picked movies they had never seen.
A huge interest in.
And I mean, I was in choirs and stuff all growing up throughout all high school and everything. So music was still a big part of my life, just not instrumental.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie, it of course, Mr. Holland, he is a composer and he's trying to write all this music, and on top of that he's trying to build a family and sustain living situation and support his wife, so he decides to become a music teacher, high school music teacher.
Yeah, because at first he was just going around playing this like random like venues and small clubs and small like weddings or bar mitzvahs or whatever it was, which you can make you a small living, but a lot of times those aren't the kind of livings that you're going to be able to afford a house and car and full sustainable life where your wife's not having to work, and especially nowadays. Like back then it was more okay, but
I just found it funny that in the beginning he talks about this is only going to be for a few years for us to be able to get a house and maybe start a family, and until I get my score written so I can have my music.
Yeah.
But then, things keep happening. They end up having a child, and he ends up falling in love with being a music teacher, and it becomes his passion.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It is a really, really cool movie. It was kind of funny because throughout the entire movie, there's a lot of rockiness for me. Like, throughout the movie where I was just like, this is your typical teacher movie. It's going to have this big sappy moment. It's going to have this, it's going to have that. But like one of the things that I found really cool about this is this really showed the like small intricacies of being a teacher, whereas you get all these extra jobs put on your job.
Yeah.
Where you have to do this and you have to come to these meetings and you have to also have these leadership roles for these certain students, and you should also be doing these summer programs and doing this and doing that. They're always trying to get you to do more and more and more and more and more, which just is a huge thing with a lot of jobs anywhere nowadays, but especially teachers. They just don't get the credit they deserve for the amount of work that they do.
No, they don't. What are your thoughts on this movie as far as your ratings?
As far as my ratings, so we are going to be doing a new rating system for you guys. We heard some feedback where the percentage rating just isn't as good, and we weren't having as much fun with the rating system either. And so we are going to be doing a new rating system of not worth it at all. It's worth the watch, worth the rent, worth a buy, or just you need this on every platform available. Watch it anytime it comes on. It's gonna be one of your favorite movies, like that kind of thing. So that's gonna be our new thing. No watch, stream it, rent it, buy it. Absolutely love it, kind of thing. So if we come up with like our own fun ratings for individual movies, we'll have that as well. You'll hear one of mine in the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, I think we're going to focus on just how we feel about the movie is instead of percentages. It's just, I don't know. I've never really been a fan of putting a number on a movie.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because like one of the things that I was struggling with the percentage of the movies is there's be times where I'd be like, oh, I gave this movie an 86%, and then I'd be watching another movie and I'm like, oh, I want to give this movie an 86%, and I'm like, oh, but I don't think it's as good as that one. But then it's like, but it's two different, completely different types of movies with completely different types of feelings, and it's really hard to say like they're the same exact rating when I think one's way better than the other, but I still think it's a B-rated movie or whatever.
Exactly.
So this one's going to be a lot more fun and a lot more free flowing for everyone to follow along. Like, oh, I can definitely tell it's not worth watching, or yeah, maybe I will buy it right away. Like, so I hope you guys enjoy that. But I definitely think this one is at least worth the rental. I think that if you are a big fan of these kind of sappy movies, where you love these kind of teacher-driven movies where like they have some bad things happen to them and they have these like really good emotional moments and stuff, like
it's kind of like Freedom Writers.
Freedom Writers or Stand and Deliver or Dead Poet Society. If you like those kind of movies, buy it. But for me, I think this is worth a rental at least. I think this is a really good movie, but I don't know if it's going to be one that I go back to a lot.
Yeah, I'm a little bit different. I say own it, buy it. I think it's a fantastic film. I am definitely biased, but I really enjoyed this movie. And with this movie being almost 2.5 hours long, it didn't feel long to me.
There's
But, like
yeah,
it flowed so well. So I enjoyed it. I think you should buy it, watch it. It is definitely worth it.
It's definitely worth at least a watch. It is really, really good. The ending filled me. It had me in tears. Like it's seriously, it's one of those movies that I didn't think I was gonna like this as much as I did. And then I had a lot of rocky moments throughout the movie, but when it got to the ending, it sold it for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I definitely say it's definitely at least worth a watch. So I guess let's go into some of our highlights and downfalls.
Going into the spoilers. I guess before we go to the spoilers, next week, please join us for my good pick, which is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home. So excited to talk about this movie.
Yes, we are both diehard Spider-Man fans. I mean, I even have a tattoo of Spider-Man on my arm. I can't really show it very well because it's on my forearm, inside of my forearm.
But yes, please join us next week for that. And on to the spoilers.
Yes. We want to go into the downfalls first or highlights first?
I'm gonna go into the downfalls. I only really had one downfall.
Okay.
And I'd like to kind of end on a happy note.
Sure.
My one downfall is about halfway through the movie. He starts mentoring this student named Rowena or Rowena.
Yeah, Rowena.
And it's really cool. But the one thing I didn't like about it was the like crush situation that she had on Mr. Holland. Well, which I mean, I remember being in high school and we all had crushes on some of our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a few of those moments in the film where it's like it's awkward, where she's kind of pushing things. Like the movie definitely doesn't like go far with it or anything.
I thought they were going to go further than they did.
Yeah.
Which it was definitely leaning towards that way. And there was moments where it felt like he was also thinking about it because him and his wife were having a lot of rocky moments.
Yeah.
And ultimately he does make good decisions.
He makes the good decision to...
It still was really weird. And when he named the song after her,
yeah, he named one of his songs.
Lies to his wife about why the song was called that, and he's like, "Oh, it's just some Norse mythology thing."
Yeah, it was.
And I was like, which, oh, I had a screenshot of that. I wanted to bring that up. Sorry.
But yeah, that's the only downfall I have with the movie. It's just it's a weird situation, and I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of how it was played out.
So I saw this thing and I thought this was actually pretty hilarious. So Rowena, in the matter of Britain, was the daughter of the purported Anglo-Saxon chief, and she's presented as a beautiful femme fatale, and she won her people the kingdom of Kent through her treacherous seduction. And I thought that was really funny that there's actually like a lore story of that name of her being a seductress, and they named the character that, and she was a seductress. So I actually gave a lot of credit to the movie for naming
Like a hidden
the
meaning.
seductress character after a famous seductress herself.
Like in mythology. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's actually like kind of cool. Like if you're going to put that in there, that's a cool way to like, kind of foreshadow
Kind
that.
of a neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other downfalls did you have for it?
So I had a decent amount of downfalls here, actually. I hate the trope of a girl singing or springing the news of a pregnancy at a really bad time. So like they're having like Mr. Holland Opus when he first, or Mr. Holland, sorry, not Mr. Holland's Opus. Mr. Holland, when he first starts teaching, he's having a really rough time. He's just not dealing with it very well. His students aren't connecting with him at all. He doesn't know how to get through to them. They're not ever like, it's typical like first day teacher, first couple of weeks teaching things. And he gets home and he's starting to complain to his wife about how much he's struggling and how he's just frustrated and he doesn't have enough time to write like he wanted to do and he thought he was going to do, and all these things. And all of a sudden she's like, I'm pregnant, and he doesn't have a good reaction to it. And then she gets all crazily upset and runs into another room, starts crying, and I was like venting to his wife about his frustrations. And then she's like, I'm pregnant, by the way. And then gets mad at him for his reaction to, like, he's already like so completely stressed out of his mind, and then you dump having a baby, which is a huge stress on someone's life. Ask any parents and they'll tell you how hard it is to raise a child, and to have that moment in there, it's just timing is everything. And I know that happens probably a lot, but it's one of those things that happens in so many movies, and I'm like, why do we always do this?
Yeah, that didn't really bother me as much. I guess I didn't really think about it. I do agree that she probably could have waited till like the next day to tell him, let him kind of do his venting and then wait till a later time. But I don't know, I didn't really see that as a downfall to me.
Well, and I mean, there's just like small, like a lot of my downfalls are like small, kind of like nitpicky things. But there are things that I just like, I get annoyed with in a lot of movies. Like another one for me was when they're actually having the baby. He doesn't have a cell phone or anything, but he still drives. So I'm guessing because he was doing driver's ed at that time.
Mhm.
And so I'm guessing he got done with his driver's ed, got to a phone, so got the news about his wife being in the hospital, and then kept the kids in the car and drove like a madman, breaking every rule, speeding through, going through red lights, almost getting into so many accidents. His kids are freaking the heck out and everything, and
It seems funny.
and all these things. And then like he brings the kids into the hospital room with them, not knowing if his wife's breastfeeding or not or whatever. And I'm like, why are these kids with him? Why are they going into the hospital room with him? Why are they going to see the baby and her? She doesn't have a baby. She doesn't want to see some random high school kids. It was just like, why? Just why?
Yeah, actually, I thought the driving lesson scenes were absolutely hilarious. Because it's like something for him to do during the summer while he's not teaching.
Well, and all the driving student scenes, they were just all astronomically bad.
Yeah.
And they were all like Dukes of Hazzard style driving, like jumping the car and doing all these crazy turns and
not knowing how to go through a roundabout, so he just like plows over it.
One of the things that I found a little weird is the amount of time jumps in this movie were kind of hard to follow. I get that they're trying to show his entire like 30-year career.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of hard to follow, and I really did not like the montage of random events that would happen. So they would show all these events from the 90s, and then it would still say, like, 1990 at the bottom of the screen. I'm like, if you're telling me what year it is already, I don't need to see all the events that happened in the 90s right before it.
Transition scenes.
We don't need them though. If they cut all those out of the movie, it would have been like 5-10 minutes shorter, and they weren't needed for the film. They didn't add anything to the film. I didn't need to see people getting carted off to Vietnam or anything like that. Like it didn't make anything else to the story. Like I don't know. Oh, I hate that when John Lennon dies, how bummed out Mr. Holland is, and then he immediately takes it out on his kid.
Yeah, that I can understand that.
Because I'm
I understand why he was so frustrated because I mean, being a music teacher and so involved in music, he had a huge passion for it, and he really enjoyed John Lennon. But I was a little annoyed by how he reacted towards his son.
Yeah, well, and it's just one of those things like people die all the time and celebrities die all the time. And I get that a lot of these people are loved and cherished for their works and stuff like that, but like people treat it like as if they like knew them. People treat it as if like it personally affected them so much to have this person die. I really, when Paul Walker died, that was another big thing for me where I had a ton of friends. Like every time I'd watch a new Fast and the Furious movie with them, they would just be bawling for half of the movie. And I'm like, why are you like so enthralled? Like you don't know him. Like I get that he's a big part of your life and you loved his acting and you love this and I loved his acting. I love most everything he's done. I've watched every movie he's ever been in, most likely. But like it's one of those things like I guess I've never had that great attachment to any of these random celebrities that I don't understand that feeling that a lot of people get where they're like actually like crying when some random celebrity dies.
Yeah, I feel like I can ride the line with that because there's definitely some celebrities that I definitely can understand where he's coming from. But I mean, yeah, a lot of people do tend to treat celebrities as like part of their family
Yeah.
when they get to
Well,
it.
and I mean there's certain moments like for me in Fast and the Furious, I think it was 7 when they had that moment where they sent Paul Walker off on his own to just go have his family on his own after he had died.
Mhm.
I cried at that moment because that was a beautiful way to send him off for his death, and it was a beautiful way of saying we don't want to kill him in the franchise, but we know that he's dead, and like having that song with it. I can't remember the Charlie the name of that song or whatever, but it was just so touching and it was really beautiful. And like pride at that moment, that was a moment that was supposed to have that emotional impact to make you feel those ways. And I don't know, I just yeah.
I really enjoyed that scene mainly because of how his son Cole reacted to him
I
because
loved that. That is a huge highlight for me.
it was so beautiful because he's taking down his son and his son is deaf, so
Yeah.
he's had to struggle growing up being the parent of a deaf child
Yeah.
and learning how to do sign language and all that. And of course, Mr. Holland has been so busy, he only learned a minimal amount of sign language.
Yeah.
So he's telling Cole, "You wouldn't understand how I feel about losing, John Lennon."
And I love this part because he's like, "You don't think I know who John Lennon is?" And he keeps like turning his head to his wife, and his wife keeps pushing his head towards Cole, and he's like, "No, eye contact with me. I need to be able to see your lips and stuff like that, and you need to see what I'm saying and all these things." And his wife's translating for him because he doesn't know a ton of sign language, but which is just incredible. It's one of my favorite death scenes in a movie, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's so cool because he's like, I know how much music means to you. I know all this stuff. Like, you don't think that I love it because you love it? Like, how dare you even think that I don't love John Lennon as much as you do just because I can't hear his music as well as you can? And he still has like some hearing and he can learn to do it. And there's all the scenes after that with them. And like when he sings the John Lennon song to his son,
Beautiful boy.
oh man,
That
which
seems so good.
God damn, that was such an amazing scene. And for me, when he said he was going to sing a John Lennon song, I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to hear Imagine again. And I was,
About the same thing.
I was like, please don't do Imagine. I'm so tired of hearing that song. But when he sang that, I was just like,
And the fact that
oh,
not only did he sing it, but he signed it at the
yes.
concert.
And he learned how to sign it just for his son.
Yeah, it was such a beautiful
And you
scene.
could see in his face, like the son the actor for his son was so incredible with that because he really did seem to have all the feelings of that song. And then when he started blaring the songs and sitting on the speaker and stuff at the house and like, I want to listen to more of your favorite songs and I want to feel your songs, Dad. And
Well, apparently, all of the actors that played the deaf children were actually deaf in real life, so it was kind of cool having that authenticity in the
yeah.
movie.
No, honestly, there's been a lot more deaf representation lately, but the amount of deaf representation in this movie and in movies like A Quiet Place
Yeah,
and in Coda, Child of Deaf Adults
yeah.
and stuff like that, like it's been incredible, and I really, really love all those things.
This movie did such a great job with it, and a very powerful scene I enjoyed in the beginning is, or when his son Coltrane is a toddler and he's just trying to communicate with his mom and dad about wanting like a cup or something, and he can't communicate yet because they haven't started learning sign language. So the mom is just like, "I can't understand my son. What am I supposed to do?" And it's just
Yeah, and
so
he doesn't want to like make him go to a deaf school and stuff like that because he still wants to try to make him hear. And but she's like, communicate with my child. Is that so hard for you? And it's amazing. One other downfall I will say before we go more into highlights is I really hate that in every school movie ever, it's always the music program to be cut.
well. It's really frustrating because that translates into actual life because a lot of schools tend to cut art programs first. When it comes to budgeting, they tend to cut music, cut art.
Well, and a
All of the
lot of them
specials programs usually get hit first.
cut
So I
budgets
think
and stuff like that for them, but not a lot of them actually cut the full programs itself and fire all the teachers immediately. Like,
not all of them, but
yeah, and like a lot of them aren't that hard to keep on a small budget. I mean, besides like the instrumental ones, of course, but like it's still just one of those things that I know it's real, and I, I guess I just never have like experienced programs being cut in my personal life through any of the schooling that I've gone through. So I just think it's one of those tropes that I'm like, does this actually happen as much as every movie says it does?
it's oh man,
I mean, I know that a lot of programs get cut and they get like the lowest amount of funding for it.
yeah.
And that is frustrating and annoying. But
Well, yeah, it happens too much.
yeah. But yeah, let's go more into highlights because yeah, there's a lot of good things about this movie.
The main thing, I mean, Mr. Holland himself is just amazing. Richard Dreyfuss does a really good job, and I loved watching him learn how to teach. Because he
Yes.
starts out being so strict and he's trying to do just by the numbers lessons and tests. And I mean, it's a music program. Typically, you don't see written tests a lot.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool watching him learn and grow as a teacher and interact with these kids and just become a big part of their lives.
One of my favorite things with when he's learning how to teach is he has this moment with the principal, and the principal says this to him. She says, as a teacher, you have two jobs. You fill their minds with the knowledge, and you have to be a compass to guide them to where to use it. And I loved that line so much because it is so true how much like some teachers really do guide you to using your knowledge in the ways that you could actually fit it into your life.
Exactly.
And when he actually starts doing that, it's incredible.
It's so good. And one of the times that I absolutely adored when he starts learning that is he has this student who's learning clarinet. And at first he's just like, do it, just play the clarinet. And he's like trying to teach her how to do it. And when he starts actually guiding her, he makes a comparison to a sunset. And he tells her like, don't, the music, don't look at the music, start playing with your heart. And he says, play the sunset.
Yeah.
And it is the most beautiful scene because she's doesn't feel like she's that good. She's always squeaking and stuff. He's like, no, play through it, keep going. And it's just
because she's
so
been playing
good.
for like 3 years but has not gotten good at it at all, and everyone in her family is always good at everything and win every award, and she's the only one who isn't good at anything, and she struggles with that. And I think it really was just a mental block for her, and he really helped her push through it and be like, quit thinking about it and just do it. And when he did that, like that sunset thing that David's talking about, it really is that moment that's just like, yes. And I really do love that when he actually starts like teaching them like with the music that they listen to, because a lot of times in music, you don't want to just keep hearing about Bach and Mozart and all these other people. You want to hear about the music that you listen to. And so when he starts bringing in, like, okay, you know this song? Well, it's actually this Mozart song.
Yeah.
And he starts playing the song that everyone loves, and everyone starts jamming out to it and like starts bobbing their heads to it. And then he starts, all right, now listen to Mozart's version of the same exact song. And you can see how a lot of your rock songs you listen to now have samples of some of the music that I love and cherish.
Well, I love when he's talking to the principal and vice principal about
Oh,
the music. The
seriously.
vice principal is really mad that Mr. Holland is incorporating rock music and more new modern music
Hmm.
into his classes. And he's like, don't play rock music. You don't want to fill their heads with that. Parents are going to be so crazy and upset about this. And he's like,
I have what he says if you want me to
yeah,
say
go
it.
ahead.
So one of the vice principal, which this was one of my downfalls. The vice principal like goes and they like when he first starts playing rock music, he like runs to the classroom to see where the music's coming from, and he looks at it, and then 9 months later he complains to the principal about it. So it took him 9 months to complain to the principal about it, which me and Jen both looked at each other like, why did he wait 9 months to complain? He's been teaching this for 9 months now. And it's like so annoying. It's a new school year already, and he's still been teaching, and he finally starts complaining about it. But uh the principal's talking about how he has a parent teacher thing that she's like talking to all these parents and the council and like the higher ups in the school things of why he's teaching the way he is, and
Mhm.
she's like, give me one reason why you need to teach what you're teaching so I can tell them. And he's like, I will use any music from Bach to rock and roll if it will help me teach those kids. And I was just like, yes. And she's like, okay, I will use that. And I agree with that completely. And you can keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, thank you. It was so good. So good.
I also loved Terrence Howard's character.
Yeah.
He plays Lewis Russell or Louis Russell. Um, and he's a football player and he's struggling and he has to get his grades up. So the football coach is like, here, I'll help you teach your kids how to march because he's forced to do a marching band.
Yep.
He said, if you do that, I want you to get my star player to learn how to play music so he can get his grades up. So he teaches him drums.
Yep.
And it is so good.
The entire time I was thinking about that scene in Drumline where he's like, you got to make love to your drum. You got to feel it. And well, there's that great scene where he's like forcing him to tap his foot on the beat.
Yep, tap his foot. He even teaches him how to dance because it helps him get into a rhythm. And then finally watching him understand how to get the bass drum hits
And then his smile and his dad's smile when he's doing the marching band during that parade.
oh, he's
I was like, and he was so proud of him, and he got to keep in sports because of it, and got to keep all of his things, and it was a cool moment.
well, and that just leads into all the happy and sad emotional beats of the movie just
Yeah,
hit so hard because later when there's Lewis's funeral
yeah,
and it's so powerful and I love that scene because Mr. Holland is currently trying to get
another troubled student.
another troubled student help. And he's like, you know what? Finds out about the funeral and he invites the student, meet me here on Saturday. And he takes him to the funeral and he sees how big of an impact that Mr. Holland had on Lewis's life and then
Yeah.
all just the emotion around him. He's like,
Well, and it's
that's
it's
wonderful.
really incredible too because Mr. Holland knew that this kid was like really smart, and he knew every answer to every music theory question he had, but he didn't
The kid didn't
care
care.
about it at all. And so him showing him ways to care about it was just really cool. And speaking of like the relationships in this movie, the relationship between Mr. Holland and the PE teacher throughout the entire time they're teaching together was incredible. The way they always were helping each other out. I have this trouble, student. I have this trouble. You help me, I'll help you. You do this, I'll do this. And just all those dynamics was so cool. And like one of the things with the PE teacher is he's like, I always wanted kids. And Mr. Holland's like, well, you have to find a wife first. He's like, well, I don't want kids that badly. Like, there's always these like really touching and funny moments with the two, and they have all these great conversations, and it's really just amazing.
Well, I loved seeing the two different specials teachers enjoying each other's company and supporting each other's careers. Because I mean,
Yeah.
there's times where it's like you see those movies where it's the football coach is like, "Nah, sports all the way. Every other art sucks." And
Well,
so
yeah, and
it's
like
really cool
there's a
seeing sports and music coincide.
Yeah. Well, and it was really cool because it's even like a moment where they were gonna cut one of the like senior musicals or senior plays or whatever, and the football coach was like, "No, no, 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 we can't do that." He's like, "I can guarantee we can get butts in those seats and we can get money from this." He's like, "How are you gonna guarantee that? We're gonna get the football team involved. We're gonna have football players dancing on stage. Who's gonna teach them? I'll teach them. I minored in dance." And there's like these moments, and those are moments you do not see in a lot of these teacher movies because, like David said, most of the time it's the rivalry between the two, and they don't ever coincide together. Like one of the first times I ever saw that was in Glee, but that even took a couple seasons before they actually got involved with each other and didn't hate each other anymore. But like this was just immediate. This teacher like understood like I will help your program because I don't want to lose you. You're a friend.
Yeah, the friendship seemed so sincere and powerful, and I just really enjoyed watching that.
And speaking of that senior musical, when Rowena first appears, she has got an amazing singing voice.
Oh yeah, the
Oh man, I got goosebumps hearing her sing, and like you could just tell, like everyone there was like, "Yep, she's our lead."
well, it took me a minute to notice, but the gal that plays Rowena, I was like, where have I seen her
That was
before?
the Yes Dear chick, Jean Louisa Kelly.
And she was also recently in Top Gun Maverick.
Yep,
She was Ice's wife, and then she was also in Uncle Buck, I
yep,
believe.
she was a Knucklebuck as well.
And that's where I first recognized her. I'm like, wow, it's the teenager from Uncle Buck. It was pretty
Yeah,
fun, but
no, and like it was really crazy because I had never seen her in anything when she was young. I always saw her when she was full fledged adult, and she looks it's pretty similar. Like I noticed, you could like once you know it's her, you can tell it's her. But like I didn't notice at all that it was her until those moments. Uh,
do you have many more
let's
highlights?
see.
I think
Oh,
all in all,
the callbacks in this movie were incredible. So when the principal retires and gives him a compass as a present because finally learned to be a compass to guide these kids to using their knowledge, I was like, that's a great callback.
well, and seeing the relationship between him and the principal grow, because when he first
Yeah.
meet, like she is just hard ass and just
Hmm.
really not supportive, and I mean their relationship grows together really well.
That and the callback uh, to Mr. Holland's wife at the beginning of the movie when he's first talking about being a music teacher and not really liking it. And she's like, I had a crush on a teacher once and starts talking about a teacher, and it was his music teacher. And the callback to a girl having a crush on him with Rowena was really cool because they mentioned that earlier with his wife. And I was like, oh, that's another really good callback. And let's see. I think I think that's pretty much it. I just love how much like you could tell, especially in that last scene, how much all the students were touched by his life. And when they gathered everyone together, and even there's even a callback in that. There was at the beginning of the movie, he's talking to his band, and there's one kid who always clears out his spit valve during the performance and spits it out on his neighbor's shoe. And when they all gather for one last performance of Mr. Holland's symphony, he does it again where he clears out his spit valve during the performance, then spits on his neighbor's shoe, and she looks at him again like, still?
Like really,
Really? And it's really cool. And having all of his students that he ever taught over 30 years, and probably not every single one, but it filled the entire auditorium
yeah.
of all of these students, of all these people who cared about Mr. Holland, who wanted to give him one last goodbye, who wanted to say, we loved your teaching, we love this. And I had teachers that I did that with. And I still have teachers that to this day I absolutely love without a doubt. And every time I see them, I'm like, yes, Miss Paps, I love you, or whoever it is. Like, there's just certain ones, and it's just incredible.
But yeah, I think that's all I have. All in all, watch the movie. It's very well rounded. It's a great emotional story. Um, and that's all I got.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Like we said, it's just one of those movies, and I think the ending is what really sells this movie. If it didn't have that ending beat to it, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much as it did. But because that heavy impact at the end, it killed it for me. It was one of those things where I'm like, if you don't land the ending, I'm not watching this movie ever again. but it landed it, and it landed it in such a great way. And so, yes,
Very worth it.
yes.
So that'll be it for Mr. Holland's Opus. Again, next week, join us for Spider-Man No Way Home.
I also realized that we had a giant Spider-Man poster behind us, and we didn't even mention that. So,
Well, Spider-Man poster behind us.
kind of towering over us. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.